Hi, my name's Ruby and welcome to week 1 of our video series. Today I wanted to start right at the beginning. Start with the basics, strip everything away and talk about what it is we are really doing in theatre, and that's storytelling. As we know, storytelling has been a really important part of many cultures throughout the years, and it started thousands of years ago with cavemen drawing paintings all on the cave walls, telling stories about what they had done in the day, what had happened in the past, and what they hoped to happen in the future. We know that many older generations would pass down stories of what life was like so that their history was remembered. Back then, they didn't write things down, we didn't have books or videos to record them in. Everything was passed on by word of mouth, and this was all done by stories. Now, this kind of means we don't necessarily know what's 100% the truth and what's embellished. We know this information because those stories were passed down. There are so many methods that we as theatre makers use when storytelling to make it more interesting. How can we engage an audience? How can we listen to the story that we have to tell? I'm sure that many years ago, when people were sat round a fire around a dinner table and everyone was listening to what they had to say, they heard every word because all they were doing was focusing on them. I don't imagine they were sat down telling the story. They were using their bodies. They were fully going into it. They were acting. They were performing. They were telling these stories in the most interesting ways possible. And now we are telling stories in a big scale. We're doing it on the screen. We're doing it through books. We're doing it through the theatre. And it can be really important to look at those stories not only as something to escape and just to become somewhere else for the day, but also as a teaching method. We know that theatre can be really educational. And how can we use our stories to make a change for future generations? We can break down storytelling in 3 sections. How it started with our visual storytelling, with the spoken word, with the paintings that we saw on the cave walls. And then quite a long way down the line, we started to have our written stories. That's when we're looking at Shakespeare and the written plays and the written language. But still, we're using the word of mouth and we are telling those stories through performance. To now, where we have our digital performance, how we watch movies, we listen to podcasts. We are now in a digital age. So we can really see that progression from the pictorial, the written, and now the digital. But all are still performing, all are still using word of mouth to pass on that story. When you were little, you probably had a story read to you at night. Something that filled your imagination and got your brain working. A major one is the stars. We see stars clumped together and we start to create a story for them. We give names to constellations. We create full myths around them. And alongside the ancient Greek gods and their myths and mythologies, they had full stories about their origins, about Persephone and the underworld, about Zeus and his lightning bolt. We are still telling those stories now. They are interesting and engaging. We see this in the Odyssey. That's all founded in storytelling. They tell stories at the feasts. They tell stories on the boats, stories of sailors, stories of heroes. And that's how names get made. We still need us as humans to have something interesting to say to make that magical story. I hope you will join Animate on this 10-part video series. Let the stories begin.